I was on duty when the nurse rang. Your younger sister was on the bus. She's the sole survivor. I yelled at the detective. Locate them. He scoffed at my face. Son, the Vipers rule this city. Go back before you're harmed. I phoned my alienated dad. He sent no lawyers. He dispatched the Air Force. They sought a conflict, he murmured. I'm unleashing the apocalypse. He obliterated the whole cartel stronghold in moments. They pleaded for grace, he granted none. Have you ever had a moment, one single, horrifying split second, where your entire world shattered into a million pieces? Where something so unimaginable, so utterly wrong, happened that it changed the very fabric of who you are? Because for me, that moment came with the smell of burnt rubber and copper, and the sight of a yellow school bus, twisted and riddled with bullet holes. Lila! I screamed, my voice ripped from my gut, tearing past the police line. But it wasn't just a bus. It was my sister's bus. And what followed wasn't just a search, it was a plunge into a war I never knew I was part of, a war that forced me to call the one man I swore I'd never speak to again, my father, the general. The one man who could either save her, or pull us all into a deeper hell. The black smoke was already clawing at the sky when I screeched to a halt at the intersection. My chest seized. That cold, familiar dread, the one this city always seemed to stir, coiled in my gut. This wasn't just a fender bender, not with those flashing lights and the frantic shouts. I slammed my car door shut, my heart already hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs, and sprinted toward the chaos. The smell hit me first, burnt rubber, something metallic, and then, copper. The tang of blood. My breath caught. And then I saw it, the yellow school bus. It was lying on its side like a wounded animal, its frame crumpled, bullet holes scarring the metal. So many bullet holes. Lila. The name tore from my throat, a primal scream, as I shoved past the horrified crowd. That's my sister's bus. I yelled, grabbing the arm of a stern-faced officer who tried to push me back. Where is she? He looked at me with flat, bored eyes. Casualties are en route to Mercy General. He muttered, like he was reciting a script. Move along, kid. Move along? My sister was on that bus. I didn't wait for permission. I didn't ask another question. I bolted back to my beat-up sedan, my hands shaking so violently I could barely jam the key into the ignition. I'd always known this city was rotting from the inside out, but I never, ever thought that rot would reach her. Lila was just 10. She loved drawing horses and eating strawberry ice cream. She didn't know anything about territory lines, about drug turf wars. She didn't know about any of it. The drive to Mercy General was a terrifying blur of ignored red lights and blaring horns. Every mile, I pictured her small face. Was she scared? Was she alone? When I burst into the ER waiting room, it was pure pandemonium. Parents were screaming, nurses were running, the air thick with fear and unspoken grief. I found a nurse, her face ashen, frantically typing at a desk. Lila. Lila Vance. I choked out, the name almost catching in my throat. She was on the bus. The nurse stopped typing. Slowly, she looked up at me with that look. You know the one. The look that says, I'm so sorry. Even before they speak. She's in surgery, honey. She said softly. Dr. Evans is with her. You need to wait here. Wait? I let out a harsh, broken laugh that was probably more of a sob. Tell me she's alive. She's fighting, was all she said. My legs gave out. I sank into one of those hard plastic chairs, burying my face in my hands. The blood roared in my ears, a frantic ocean of fear and rage. I needed answers. I needed to know who did this. I looked up and saw Officer Dominic, the lead on the scene, standing by the vending machines, sipping coffee like it was just another Tuesday morning break. Dominic. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Dominic. He was the guy you paid if you wanted your shop windows to stay intact. My stomach clenched. I walked over to him, my voice dangerously low. Who was it, Dominic? He didn't even blink. Gang crossfire. Mason. Just bad luck. Wrong place, wrong time. Bad luck? I stepped closer, my voice dropping to a whisper that vibrated with suppressed fury. That bus was shot up with automatic rifles. That's not bad luck. That's a hit. Who was shooting? Dominic sighed, tossing his empty cup into the trash. Look, kid, go home. Pray for your sister. Don't go asking questions you don't want answers to. The Vipers. They don't like nosy neighbors. The Vipers. Of course. The city's cancer. And Dominic, I realized with a sickening lurch, was clearly on their payroll. He wasn't going to do a thing. He was going to file a report, bury it under red tape, and let my sister become just another statistic. I looked around the room again, helpless parents, overwhelmed doctors, and a corrupt cop sipping coffee while my sister bled out on a table. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud, dramatic snap. It was quiet. It was the sound of the last thread of my patience, my hope, breaking. I walked outside into the cool night air. My hands had stopped shaking. I pulled out my phone, scrolling past friends, past my boss, down to a contact I hadn't called in 5 years. The general. My thumb hovered over the button. I had sworn I'd never asked him for anything. I hated his money. I hated his coldness. I hated that he chose his classified missions and defense contracts over Mom and me, over being a dad. But looking back at those hospital doors, thinking about Lila, I realized something. I didn't need a dad right now. I needed a monster. I pressed call. It rang once. Mason. The voice on the other end was deep, calm, and terrifyingly alert. Why are you calling me on this line? They shot Lila. I said, my voice dead calm, devoid of all emotion. The police aren't doing anything. Silence. For 3 long seconds, there was just the static of the line. Then he spoke. Where are you? Mercy, General. Stay there, he said. And Mason. Yeah? Look at the sky. The line went dead. I looked up. At first, I saw nothing but the city smog and the dim stars. But then I heard it. A low thrumming sound, getting louder, vibrating in my chest. It wasn't a police siren. It was the heavy, rhythmic chopping of rotors. A black helicopter, unmarked, sleek as a shark, tore through the clouds, banking hard toward the hospital roof. The wind from the rotors kicked up dust in the parking lot, forcing me to shield my eyes. People were running to the windows, pointing. My father wasn't just coming to visit. He was invading. This wasn't a family reunion. This was the start of a war. The helicopter dropped lower, the sound so violent it felt like it was shaking my ribs from the inside. Dust tore across the parking lot. People ducked. A few nurses grabbed their scrubs and ran back inside. This wasn't some life flight bird bringing in another patient. This thing was matte black, sharp-edged, with no hospital logo, no nothing. It looked like it belonged in a war zone, not hovering over a busted-up city hospital. The skids touched down hard. The side door slid open before the rotors even slowed. 3 guys jumped out first, dark suits, clean fades, earpieces. The whole Secret Service meets Special Ops vibe. One of them, a tall guy with a scar along his jawline, swept the area with his eyes like he could see threats I didn't even know existed. Then he stepped out. Victor. My father. He didn't look any smaller than when I last saw him, even though 5 years and a lot of hate had built up in my head. Gray at his temples now, tan skin, posture so straight it made everyone else around him look crooked. Black coat, no tie, no smile, just that controlled, unreadable face I remembered from my childhood. The one that always seemed more focused on his next flight than on me. His eyes locked on mine the second his shoes hit the pavement. No hesitation, no surprise. Mason, he said over the roar, like we talked yesterday. I swallowed hard. You got here fast. He glanced up at the sky once, then back at the hospital. You said they shot Lila? That's all you needed to say. One of his men stepped up. Perimeter's clear for now, sir. Victor nodded without looking at him. Lock down the entrance. Nobody in or out without my approval. Especially local law enforcement. You can't. I started, instinct fighting with a weird sense of relief. He cut me a sideways look. Do you want to argue jurisdiction, or do you want your sister alive? The wind from the rotors blasted us as the pilot powered down. I shut my mouth. We walked toward the sliding doors together, a loose formation of power and tension, and the automatic sensors almost seemed too slow to get out of his way. Inside, the hospital's chaos kept moving like nothing had changed. Crying, beeping monitors, ringing phones. But heads turned. People recognized money. They recognized authority. Even if they didn't know his name, they felt it. Officer Dominic was still in the waiting area, laughing at something on his phone with another cop. When he looked up and saw Victor, the color actually drained from his face. That told me more than any file ever could. Victor didn't go to him right away. First, he went to the nurse's station. A young nurse with tired eyes, her badge said Brooke, looked up and opened her mouth to tell him to wait his turn. Then she saw the men behind him. The way one of them had already positioned himself with his back to the wall, scanning everyone within 20 feet. "I need the attending surgeon for Lila Vance," Victor said, his voice quiet but carrying. "Sir, we can't just—" He pulled out a slim leather wallet, opened it, and laid a card on the counter. I couldn't see what was on it, but her eyes flicked down, then widened. "I fund the cardiac wing," he said calmly. "And half your new equipment budget. Get the surgeon now." Brooke didn't argue again. She picked up the phone with shaking hands and dialed. I watched him work and felt that old mix of disgust and awe fighting inside me. This was what he did. He didn't beg. He didn't plead. He just rearranged the world until it fit what he wanted. Dominic finally forced himself to walk over, straightening his belt like it would make him look bigger. "Mr. Vance?" he said, trying for a friendly tone. "Didn't know you were in town." Victor turned slowly, gave him a long, bored once-over like he was a bug on the windshield. "You didn't know a lot of things tonight," Victor said. "Like the fact that a school bus was turned into target practice on your watch." Dominic shifted his weight. "We're handling it. We've got units all over it. Just random gang activity. You know how." Victor stepped closer, not raising his voice, not changing his expression. "What gang fires that many rounds in broad daylight at a moving school bus without fear of response?" he asked. "Random doesn't buy cops new boats, Dominic." The cop's jaw tightened. Just a flicker. But Victor caught it. "I don't know what you're implying," Dominic said. "I'm not implying," Victor replied. "I'm observing." Before it could escalate further, a woman in green scrubs rushed up. She looked like she'd been in the thick of it for hours, surgical cap, mask hanging around her neck, eyes bloodshot but focused. "I'm Dr. Harper," she said, looking between us. "You're Lila's father?" "Yes," Victor said. I felt that word like a punch. He hadn't earned it. Not for me, but for her. For Lila? I hoped he would. "We were able to stabilize her," Dr. Harper said. "One bullet entered through her shoulder. Another grazed her side. The bigger concern is the blood loss and possible trauma to the spine from the impact when the bus tipped. She's in a medically induced coma for now." "Is she going to wake up?" I asked, my voice coming out rough. Dr. Harper looked at me, then back to Victor like she was trying to decide how much truth to give a billionaire versus his son. "We don't know yet," she said softly. "The next 48 hours are critical. Right now, she's stable. That's the best I can tell you." Victor didn't flinch. "I want an extra nurse on her at all times. Any equipment you need, you'll have it. No one goes into that room without my authorization. Not even police. Understood?" Dr. Harper hesitated, then nodded. "As long as it doesn't interfere with her care." "It won't," he said. "You just keep her alive. I'll handle everything else." She walked away, already barking orders. Victor turned to one of his men. "Hunter, if I remembered right from old brief glimpses at base visits when I was a kid." "Hunter, find an unused conference room," Victor said. "We spin up here, full comms, live feeds. I want access to the city's traffic cameras and hospital security footage from the last 4 hours." Hunter nodded and moved off, phone already to his ear. I stared at Victor. "You came in like this was a war zone." He looked at me, and for a second something almost like regret flickered across his face. "Mason," he said quietly. "It is." We took the elevator up to the ICU floor. His security rode with us, forming a silent wall between us and the rest of the world. I watched the floor numbers climb, my reflection in the metal doors looking pale, my eyes too wide. "I talked to Dominic," I said. "He called it random. Told me to go home." Victor's mouth twisted slightly. "He's dirt. Has been for years. I have a file on him thicker than his service record." "You knew he was dirty and you did nothing?" "I don't clean every gutter in every city," he said. "Until it spills into my house." The doors opened with a soft ding. The ICU hallway was quieter but heavier somehow. Machines hummed. The air smelled of antiseptic and fear. Lila's room was at the end of the corridor. I knew it was hers before I saw the number, just from the cluster of cables snaking into one door, the soft beep 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 of monitors keeping time with my own frantic heartbeat. We stepped inside. She looked even smaller on that bed, swallowed by white sheets and tubes. Bandages wrapped her shoulder, wires taped to her chest. A ventilator hissed softly, making her chest rise and fall in that unnatural rhythm. I moved to her side, my fingers trembling as I brushed hair away from her forehead. "Hey, Lil," I whispered. "I'm here." Victor stood at the foot of the bed, staring at her like he was scanning a battlefield. For a moment, just one moment, his jaw clenched and his eyes went glassy. Then he blinked, and the general was back. He walked to her side and placed his hand gently, so gently it surprised me, on her small arm. "You hold on," he murmured. "Do you hear me? You hold." He stayed like that for a long beat, then straightened. "Come on," he said to me. "We have work." "I'm not leaving her," I snapped. His gaze hardened. "If you want to help her, you come with me. Sitting here watching machines won't stop the men who did this." I looked at Lila, then at him. Everything in me wanted to plant myself in that chair and never move. But another part, the one that had dialed his number, knew he was right. I squeezed her hand. "I'll be back," I whispered. "I swear." We stepped out. Two of Victor's men took positions outside her door like human shields. Hunter met us halfway down the hall. "Conference room is secured, sir. We've got a private network up. Eliza is patching in remotely for system access." "Good," Victor said. "Let's start." We entered a small conference room that had probably seen budget meetings and boring PowerPoints just that morning. Now it looked like a forward operating base. Laptops open, wires everywhere, a portable satellite terminal on the table. Maps of the city were pulling up on screens. Hunter pointed to a large monitor. "This is traffic cam footage from 3 blocks out, 10 minutes before the shooting." On the screen, I watched a grainy school bus roll down a cracked street. Kids' faces were just vague shapes behind the dirty windows. "Advance it," Victor said. A dark SUV slid into frame behind the bus. Then another one cut across an intersection ahead, forcing the bus to slow. "They boxed them in," I whispered, a cold dread seeping back in. "This wasn't random." "Exactly," Victor said. "They chose the time, place, and route. They knew that bus." He looked at me, and this time there was no softness left. "They thought they could open fire on my family and disappear into the cracks," he said. "They thought no one would come for them." His lips curved into something that wasn't a smile. "They forgot I don't need the streets, Mason." He tapped the map, then lifted his eyes to mine. "I own the sky." For a second, the room went quiet after he said it. Just the faint hum of machines and the buzz of fluorescent lights. People always say real life doesn't follow any kind of 3-act structure, but I swear that night felt like some brutal second act crashing down on us in real time. Victor kept his eyes on the screen, not on me. Hunter rewound the footage again, slower this time. The dark SUV behind the bus, the one cutting it off ahead. Same model, same tinted windows, no plates visible. "Freeze it," Victor said. The frame froze mid-roll. Victor stepped closer, pointing at the corner of the image. "There," he said. "That graffiti on the wall." Hunter zoomed in. A serpent's head, fanged, painted in neon green over a black fist. "The Vipers?" I muttered. "Of course. Pull every camera from a 5-block radius, 30 minutes before and after," Victor ordered. "I want to see where they came from and where they ran to after." Hunter's fingers flew over the keyboard. Another screen split into 4 feeds, then 8 different angles of the neighborhood. Cars, pedestrians, kids, old men on stoops. We watched the SUVs move through the streets like sharks, never stopping, never hesitating. They knew exactly where they were going. "Here," Hunter said, 3 minutes after the shooting. On the screen, the 2 SUVs tore through a yellow light and made a hard right, nearly clipping another car. They didn't head for the usual Viper corners. They didn't disappear into some dead-end alley. They pulled into an underground garage beneath a downtown building with mirrored glass. "That's not a stash house," I said. "What is that?" Hunter overlaid another window. "City records, zoning permits, payments, building is owned by Silverline Holdings," he said. "Front company. Papers say they do commercial development, luxury condos, that kind of thing." Victor was already miles ahead. Scrolled down. "Board of Directors." Names filled the screen. My eyes slid over a few until one locked me in place. "Councilman Preston Hale." I let out a low whistle. You've got to be kidding me. The Vipers are parking under his building. No, Victor said. He's parking them under his building. He turned slightly. Eliza, you online? A clear female voice came from the speakerphone sitting on the table. Loud and clear, sir. Cross-reference Silverline Holdings and Preston Hale with any unexplained campaign donations, offshore accounts, or sealed financial investigations. Red flag. Anything that ties to known Viper fronts. Already on it, she said, fingers clacking faintly through the line. And, tell Mason I said hi. Last time I saw him, he was a lot shorter. I blinked. Eliza? Yeah. She laughed softly. Used to babysit you on the base when your mom needed a break. I tried to picture the quiet, invisible hacker on the other end of the line holding a baby bottle. It almost broke my brain. Focus, Victor said, but there was the tiniest hint of warmth in his voice. Right, she said. Give me 10. Victor leaned over the map projection, tracing a line from the bus route to the Silverline building. They chose this street because it's a blind spot, he said. No working street cams on that block except the one we just pulled, and I had to go through a private vendor for that feed. City never fixed the public ones. Convenient. You're saying this whole thing was planned, like a military operation? I asked. I'm saying, Victor replied. Someone with resources, timing, and protection decided to send a message. The Vipers are the gun. I want the hand that pulled the trigger. The door opened and Dominic stepped in without knocking. His eyes moved over the wires, the screens, the SAT terminal, and for the first time since I'd known him, he actually looked unsure. This is a restricted area, he said, but it came out weaker than usual. Victor didn't bother turning around. Get out. Dominic bristled. You can't just set up your own little CIA branch in my city, Vance. This is my jurisdiction. Victor straightened up slowly, then finally faced him. You had your chance, he said. You called this random. You told my son to go home. Dominic's gaze flicked to me for half a second, then back. Because stirring this up gets people killed. These guys aren't street punks. You don't understand what you're poking at. Victor took one step closer. The room seemed to shrink around them. I've bombed convoys in 3 countries you can't even pronounce, he said quietly. I've watched men smarter and meaner than these clowns vanish under 10 tons of concrete because they picked the wrong side. You think I don't understand? Dominic swallowed. His hand twitched near his belt, not quite going for his weapon, more like a reflex. What do you want from me? He said. We're already stretched thin. I can't just go raiding buildings downtown because some camera glitched on a couple of SUVs. I don't want anything from you, Victor said. That's the point. You're compromised. I can smell it on you. But you are going to do one thing. Dominic's jaw tightened. And what's that? You're going to stay away from my daughter's room, Victor said. No patrols, no detectives, no checking in. Anyone in uniform goes near her door without my permission, and I will bury their careers so deep they'll be lucky to manage mall security. The cop's face flushed red. You can't. Victor gestured to Hunter. Show him. Hunter tapped a key. Another window popped up on the big screen. An internal affairs report. Half of it blacked out. Dominic's name highlighted in yellow. Payment logs. Lost evidence. Suspicious case closures. Dominic's mouth fell open. How did you? That file is sealed. It was, Victor said. You really thought you were the only one who could buy information in this town? For a second, I thought Dominic might swing. But then his shoulders slumped, just a fraction. You think you scare me? He muttered. No, Victor said. I think the men who pay you scare you. That's why you're going to pretend you never saw this room, never met my people, and never heard my name tonight. Go write your random gang crossfire report. Archive it. Then stay out of my way. The silence stretched. Finally, Dominic turned, yanked the door open, and walked out, almost slamming it behind him. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. You just blackmailed a cop in the middle of a hospital. Correction, Victor said, turning back to the screen. I just removed a liability from the equation. Eliza here. Her voice cut back in. Got something you're going to like, or hate. Hard to say. Go ahead, Victor said. Preston Hale's campaign has 3 major donors that don't match his public statements, she said. All filtered through Silverline. And one of those donors is a private equity firm that only exists on paper. Northbridge Capital. The name tugged at something in my memory, but I couldn't place it. Northbridge, Victor repeated. That's new, Eliza. Cross-match Northbridge with any defense contracts or overseas shell companies. Ownership board, even minor stakeholders. Already digging, she said. But that might take a while. They buried this deep. I stared at the map, the bus route, the blind block, the rich man's building downtown, the cops shaking in our conference room. We're not calling the feds? I asked. The DA? Somebody? Victor shook his head. Not yet. You call them in now, they leak to the wrong person, and every rat in the city dives into a new hole. We're not chasing them through tunnels. We're flushing them into the open. And how do we do that? I asked. He looked almost amused. We give them a choice. Run or talk. Hunter pulled up a different feed. Street cams a few blocks from the Silverline Tower. Preston's favorite club is 2 streets over, Hunter said. He's there most Thursday nights. Tonight included. On the grainy image, a sleek car pulled up to a velvet rope entrance. Flashing lights, laughing couples, a red neon sign. The kind of place where people forget the world is burning a few miles away. You're going there? I said. Tonight? Yes, Victor said. They just turned my child into an acceptable casualty. They think I'm going to send lawyers and letters. He picked up his coat from the back of a chair, sliding it on like armor. They're about to learn I don't start with paper, he said. I start with presents. You're taking your team? I asked, glancing at Hunter. Minimal, Victor said. This isn't a raid. It's a conversation. I felt my pulse start to race. Then I'm coming. He hesitated. It was small, but it was there. This isn't your world, Mason, he said. You don't need to see how I talk to men like this. I already saw my sister full of tubes tonight. I shot back, the anger finally breaking through. I'm not sitting in a waiting room while you go play ghost. If this has anything to do with me, I want to look them in the eye. He studied me for a long moment, reading me like he'd read that cop, those files, this city. Fine, he said at last. You stay next to me. You don't speak unless I tell you. You don't move unless I move. Understood? Yeah, I said. Understood. He turned to Hunter. Prep the car. No chopper. We don't need headlines yet. Hunter nodded and started packing equipment, breaking the room down with the same smooth efficiency they'd used to build it. As we stepped back into the hallway, I glanced toward the ICU. I could just see the corner of Lila's doorway. Victor's men stationed like statues outside, hands folded in front, eyes alert. I'll be back, I whispered under my breath, not sure if I was talking to her or to myself. Victor walked ahead, cutting through the hospital like a knife. People parted without knowing why, like some instinct told them to move. I followed him out into the night. The city lights glaring too bright, sirens wailing in the distance. Somewhere out there, men were laughing in a club, thinking they'd gotten away with murder. They had no idea that the man walking beside me didn't believe in letting things slide. The ride to the club was silent. Not the kind of silence where you don't have anything to say, but the kind where the air feels heavy, like right before a storm breaks. Victor stared out the window, watching the city blur past. I sat next to him, checking my phone every 30 seconds, hoping for an update from Dr. Harper. Nothing. Hunter drove. He didn't weave through traffic or speed. He just drove with this terrifying precision, like he knew exactly where every car on the road was going before they did. When we pulled up to the Velvet Lounge, the line was already around the block. Kids my age, dressed in expensive clothes they couldn't afford, waiting to get into a place owned by a man who was probably laundering their parents' mortgage payments. Hunter parked right in front of a fire hydrant. A bouncer, a mountain of a guy with a neck tattoo, stepped off the curb, looking ready to fight. Hey, you can't park. Victor opened the door and stepped out. He didn't look at the bouncer. He just adjusted his cuffs and walked straight toward the velvet rope. The bouncer froze. It was instinct. You see a predator, you stop moving. Hunter and I flanked him. The bouncer swallowed hard, his eyes darting to the earpiece in Hunter's ear, then to Victor's coat, which definitely cost more than the bouncer made in a year. Mr. Vance? The bouncer stammered, recognizing him. I didn't know you were on the list. I'm not, Victor said, walking past him without breaking stride. But I'm buying the drinks. We swept inside. The music was a physical wall of bass, shaking the floorboards. Lights flashed in epileptic bursts, red, blue, purple. Bodies were packed tight on the dance floor, grinding, laughing, screaming over the noise. Victor moved through the crowd like Moses parting the Red Sea. He didn't shove anyone. He didn't have to. People just felt his presence and moved. It was uncanny. We headed straight for the VIP section, a raised platform overlooking the chaos, guarded by 2 more security guys. These weren't regular bouncers. They were armed. I could see the bulges under their jackets. Private party. One of them shouted over the music, stepping in Victor's path. Victor stopped. He looked at the guard. Then up at the booth. Sitting there, surrounded by bottles of Grey Goose and girls who looked bored, were 3 men. I recognized the middle one instantly from the footage. The tattoos on his neck matched the Viper's tag. Tell your boss, Victor said, his voice cutting through the bass like a razor, that his lease just expired. The guard frowned. What? Victor pulled out his phone, typed a single command, and held the screen up. It was a deed transfer confirmation. Timestamp 30 seconds ago. I just bought the building, Victor said. And I'm closing early. The guard blinked, confused. Before he could react, Hunter moved. It was so fast I almost missed it. 1 second, Hunter was standing still. The next, he had the guard's wrist in a lock and was whispering something in his ear. The guard went pale and stepped aside. We walked up the steps. The music seemed to die away as we entered the VIP booth. The 3 men looked up. The leader, a guy with gold teeth and eyes that looked dead inside, laughed. Victor Vance, he shouted, raising a glass. To what do I owe the honor? You heard a party, old man? Victor didn't sit. He stood at the edge of the table, casting a long shadow over their celebration. You have 5 minutes, Victor said. The leader, whose street name was Snake, smirked. 5 minutes for what? A lap dance? To run, Victor said. Snake's smile faltered. He exchanged looks with his crew. You think you can walk in here and threaten me? You know who protects us. I know who paid you, Victor corrected. And I know about the bus. The air in the booth turned ice cold. Snake set his glass down slowly. His hand drifted toward his waistband. I don't know what you're talking about, Snake said, his voice lower. Accidents happen, Vance. City's a dangerous place. It is, Victor agreed. Especially when you miss. Snake's eyes widened. Victor leaned down, placing his hands on the table. You were paid to hit a target. You missed. You hit a 10-year-old girl instead. My daughter. Snake flinched. He didn't know. The realization hit him like a physical slap. He knew Victor Vance was rich. He didn't know the girl on the bus was his blood. Look, Snake stammered, his hand moving away from his gun. We just took a contract. It was business. We didn't know who hired you, I demanded, stepping forward. I couldn't help it. The rage was boiling over. Snake looked at me, then back at Victor. He was calculating. He knew if he talked, he was dead. If he didn't talk, he was probably dead anyway. I can't, Snake whispered. He'll kill me. Victor checked his watch. You have 4 minutes, Vance. 3 minutes, Victor said. And then I give the order. What order? Snake asked, sweat beading on his forehead. Victor pointed to the window overlooking the street. My team isn't just here, Snake. They're at your mother's house on 4th Street. They're at your stash house in the chaotic district. They're at the warehouse where you keep your product. Snake stood up, knocking his chair over. You're bluffing. Victor pulled up a live feed on his phone and tossed it onto the table. It showed a dark room, rows of shelves, and a red laser dancing on a stack of cash. I don't bluff, Victor said. I liquidate. Snake looked at the phone, then at Victor. He looked like a trapped rat. Okay, Snake yelled, holding his hands up. It wasn't us. We were just the muscle. The order came from the top. From the suits. Name, Victor said. I don't have a name, Snake cried. Just a company. Northbridge. They wired the money. That's all I know. Northbridge. The shell company Eliza found. And the target? Victor asked. Who were you supposed to hit? Snake looked at me. He swallowed hard. Him, Snake said, pointing a shaking finger at my chest. We were supposed to hit the son to send a message to the father. My blood ran cold. The room spun. Me? I whispered. But I haven't seen him in 5 years. That was the point, Snake said. They wanted to show you that even if you leave, you can't leave us. Victor's face didn't change, but his eyes, they went pitch black. Get out, Victor said softly. Run, Victor roared, his voice cracking with sudden, terrifying fury. Before I changed my mind. Snake and his crew didn't hesitate. They scrambled over the booth, knocking over bottles, running for the back exit like the devil himself was snapping at their heels. I stood there, frozen. It was my fault. Lila was in that bed because of me. Because of who my father was, because of a war I didn't even know I was fighting. Victor picked up his phone. Burn it? He said into the receiver. The warehouse? Hunter asked. No, Victor said, looking around the club. Everything. On the screen on the table, I watched the laser dot in the warehouse widen. Then the feed went white. Victor turned to me. He put a hand on my shoulder. It was heavy. We're done with warnings, he said. I looked at the empty booth, the spilled vodka dripping onto the floor like clear blood. He was right. The warning shot had been fired. Now the real shooting was about to start, and I knew exactly where we had to go next. We had to find Northbridge. And I had a sick feeling I knew exactly whose signature was on those checks. The ride back from the club felt different. There was no victory in the silence this time. Just the bitter taste of what Snake had said, Northbridge hit the sun. The words kept bouncing around in my skull. I wasn't just an observer anymore. I was the reason my little sister was fighting for her life. Victor sat in the back, his face illuminated by the blue light of his tablet. He hadn't spoken since he gave the order to burn Snake's operation to the ground. He wasn't angry. He was processing. That was always worse. Northbridge Capital, Victor said suddenly, breaking the silence. I've heard that name before. Not in business circles. Where then? I asked, turning to face him. Politics, he said. It's a ghost fund. They pop up during election years, funneling dark money into campaigns, then vanish. So, this is political? I asked. Because you didn't support someone? No, he said, scrolling through a file Eliza had just sent. Because I wouldn't sell. 5 months ago, I got an offer for the aerospace division. It was aggressive. They didn't just want the tech. They wanted the patents for the new guidance systems. And you said no, I guessed. I told them to go to hell, Victor corrected. The buyer was hidden behind 3 layers of shell companies, but the final offer came from a firm called Northbridge. He tapped the screen, enlarging a logo. It was simple, a stylized N with a bridge arc. Eliza, he said into his earpiece. I need you to find out who sits on the board of Northbridge. Not the proxies. The real money. Working on it, Eliza's voice crackled back. But boss, you're not going to like this. I'm tracing the initial incorporation papers. They were filed in the Cayman Islands. But the notary stamp? It's from a firm right here in the city. Which firm? Victor asked, his voice dropping an octave. Sterling and Vance, she said. The car seemed to swerve, though Hunter hadn't moved the wheel. Sterling and Vance. That was my mother's firm, or rather, her new husband's firm. Julian Sterling. My stomach dropped so hard I felt nauseous. Julian, the man who had married my mom 3 years ago. The guy who bought me a car I didn't want for my birthday. The guy who always smiled too much and asked too many questions about Dad's business. It can't be Julian, I said, my voice sounding thin, barely there. He's family now. He eats dinner with us. Victor looked at me, and for the first time, I saw pity in his eyes. Masson, in my world, family is just another word for leverage. He was at the hospital, I argued, trying to make it make sense. He was crying in the waiting room with Mom. Or he was checking to see if the job was done, Victor said, cold. Hard facts, Eliza. Victor, he commanded. Get me Julian's financials, specifically any transfers to Northbridge in the last 6 months. Already there, she said. And bingo. 3 transfers, $2 million each, labeled consulting fees. The last one cleared yesterday morning. Yesterday morning? The day of the shooting. My hands curled into fists until my knuckles turned white. He paid for it. He paid to have me killed, missed, hit Lila, and then sat in the waiting room holding my mother's hand while she sobbed. I'm going to kill him. I said it. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. No, Victor said sharp. You're not. Not yet. He shot Lila. I shouted, losing it. He paid for the bullet. And if you walk into his house and put a bullet in him tonight, Victor said, grabbing my wrist with a grip like steel, you go to prison, and the people above him, the ones who actually ordered the hit, disappear. Julian is just a middleman. A jealous, greedy middleman who wanted my company and thought killing my heir would force me to sell. So what do we do? I asked, shaking. Let him sleep in the same bed as Mom tonight? No, Victor said. We go get the proof. Undeniable, physical proof. Eliza. Where does Julian keep his private records? Not the firm's servers, his dirt. I said suddenly. He has a safe. The memory flashed back. A dinner 2 months ago. Julian drunk on scotch, bragging about his insurance policy in his home office, behind the painting of the sailboats. He told me once it's where he keeps the things that could burn the city down. Victor looked at me, impressed. Change of course. Where to, sir? Hunter asked. My ex-wife's house, Victor said. We drove to the suburbs. The houses got bigger. The lawns greener. It looked so peaceful. It was a lie. We parked down the street. Victor didn't get out this time. This has to be you, he said to me. If I go in there, it's a raid. If you go in, you're just a worried son checking on his mom. What if he's there? I asked. He's not, Victor said, looking at his phone. Eliza tracked his phone. He's at the police precinct. Probably trying to fix the mess we made at the club. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Okay. I got out and walked up the driveway. The house was dark except for the porch light. I used my key. I still had one, even though I rarely visited. Inside, it smelled like lavender and expensive cleaning products. It smelled like home. I crept up the stairs, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The office was at the end of the hall. I pushed the door open. It was dark. I used my phone light. The painting of the sailboats was there, just like I remembered. I pulled it away from the wall. A sleek digital safe sat flush with the plaster. I don't know the code, I whispered into my phone. I do. Eliza's voice came through the earpiece Victor had given me. I'm brute forcing the keypad via the house's smart network. Give me 5 seconds. The keypad beeped. Click. The door swung open. It wasn't full of cash. It was full of hard drives and one thick manila folder labeled Project Skyfall. I grabbed the folder and opened it. Photos, surveillance photos of me, leaving my apartment, going to work, eating lunch. And then the emails. Printed out. From Northbridge_admin to Julian.Sterling. Subject, the heir problem. The acquisition cannot proceed while the son remains a potential successor. Remove the obstacle. The father will crumble. I felt sick. Physically sick. I leaned against the desk, gasping for air. Suddenly, the lights in the driveway flared. Car doors slammed. Mason. Victor's voice cut through the earpiece. Urgent. Get out. Now. Julian just pulled up. And he's not alone. I froze. I could hear heavy footsteps on the front porch. Voices. Angry voices. He knows, Julian was saying. Snake talked. We need to clean the house. Clean the house? Another voice asked. What about the wife? Her too, Julian said. She asked too many questions. Make it look like a break-in gone wrong. My blood turned to ice. Mom was sleeping in the next room. I wasn't just here to steal a file anymore. I was the only thing standing between my mother and a hit squad. Dad, I whispered, the words slipping out for the first time in 5 years. They're going to kill Mom. Hold your position, Victor said. We're coming in. I heard the front door kick open downstairs. Glass shattered. I gripped the heavy brass paperweight on Julian's desk, knowing it wasn't enough against guns, but knowing I wouldn't let them touch her. Not while I was still breathing. The front door crashed open below us, the sound echoing like a gunshot. My hand tightened around the brass paperweight. It was heavy, cold, and utterly useless against what was coming up the stairs. Dad? I breathed into the earpiece, my voice barely a whisper. They're inside. I know. Victor's voice was steady. A calm anchor in the storm. Do not engage. Get into the closet. Lock it from the inside. We are 60 seconds out. 60 seconds? I hissed. They'll be in this room in 10. Mason, he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Hide. I shoved the folder into my jacket and scrambled into the walk-in closet, pulling the door shut just as heavy boots hit the top of the stairs. I huddled behind a rack of Julian's expensive suits, the smell of his cologne suffocating me. Check the master bedroom, a voice growled. It wasn't Julian. It was deeper, rougher. If the wife wakes up, silence her. No witnesses. My heart stopped. Mom. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't hide in a closet while they hurt her. No, I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. I can't wait. They're going for Mom. Mason, stay put. No, I said, and I kicked the closet door open. I burst into a hallway just as a man in a tactical vest turned the corner toward my mother's room. He wasn't expecting anyone. That was my only advantage. I swung the brass weight with everything I had, catching him in the temple. He went down with a grunt, his rifle clattering to the floor. But there were two more. Contact! One shouted from the stairs. I scrambled for the rifle, but a boot slammed into my ribs, sending me sprawling. Air left my lungs in a painful wheeze. I looked up to see Julian standing there holding a pistol. He wasn't the smiling stepdad anymore. He looked terrified, sweaty, and dangerous. Mason, he stammered, the gun shaking in his hand. What are you doing here, you sick son of a bitch? I wheezed, clutching my side. You paid them. I didn't have a choice. Julian yelled, his voice cracking. They were going to bankrupt me. Northbridge, they own everything. Mason, I just wanted the money. So you killed Lila? I screamed. She wasn't supposed to be there, he shouted back. It was just supposed to be a warning. Julian? The bedroom door opened. My mother stood there in her robe, blinking in the hallway light, confusion written all over her face. She saw the man on the floor. She saw the gun in her husband's hand. She saw me bleeding on the carpet. Julian, she whispered. What? What is this? Julian's face crumbled. He raised the gun. Not at me. At her. I'm sorry, Clara, he sobbed. I can't let you leave. No! I roared, trying to get up. Crash! The window at the end of the hall shattered inward. A dark shape swung in on a rappel line, boots slamming into the chest of the second gunman. Hunter. Before Julian could pull the trigger, a red laser appeared on his hand. Bang! The gun flew out of Julian's grip as a bullet took off his thumb. He screamed, falling to his knees. Victor walked up the stairs. He didn't run. He walked. He stepped over the unconscious man I had hit. Walked past me and stood over Julian. You should have taken the bankruptcy, Victor said. He didn't look at my mother. He didn't look at me. He looked at Julian with the cold detachment of an executioner. Tie him up, Victor ordered Hunter. And get my family out of here. Victor? Mom whispered, clutching her robe. She looked at him like she was seeing a ghost. You did this. Victor stopped. He turned slowly to face her. The silence was heavy, filled with 5 years of unsaid words. I didn't do this, Clara, he said softly. I'm just finishing it. We dragged Julian downstairs. He was sobbing, clutching his mangled hand. We threw him into the back of the SUV next to his own hitmen, who were currently zip-tied and unconscious. Where are we taking him? I asked, wiping blood from my mouth. To the only place safe enough to interrogate him, Victor said. The airfield. And the file? He asked. I pulled the crumpled folder from my jacket. Got it. It proves everything. Northbridge ordered the hit. Julian was just the errand boy. Victor took the file. He opened it under the dome light of the car. His eyes scanned the pages faster and faster. Then he stopped. His face went pale. I had never seen my father look pale. What? I asked. What is it? He turned the page around so I could see the email signature at the bottom of the order. It wasn't a name. It was a code. Authorized by architect. I know this call sign, Victor whispered. I haven't seen it since Baghdad. Who is it? I asked. It's not a business rival, Victor said, looking out into the dark night. The architect isn't a CEO. He's a ghost. A black ops contractor who was supposed to be dead 10 years ago. He looked at me, and the realization was terrifying. This isn't about the company, Mason, he said. It's not about money. Then what is it about? It's revenge, Victor said. For a mission I led in 2004. He didn't want my company. He wanted to make me watch my bloodline die. The car went silent. The war had just changed. We weren't fighting a greedy corporation anymore. We were fighting a dead man who knew exactly how my father thought, how he fought, and what he loved. And he was just getting started. Get to the plane, Victor said, his voice low and dangerous. We're going hunting. The private airfield sat 20 miles outside the city, tucked between farmland and industrial lots where nobody asked questions. Victor's jet was already on the tarmac, engines warming up, the sleek white body glowing under the floodlights like some kind of escape vehicle from a spy film. We dragged Julian and his men out of the SUV. Julian was still whimpering, cradling his ruined hand. I felt nothing looking at him. No pity, no anger, just cold focus. Inside, Victor ordered, pointing to a small hangar off to the side. Hunter, get the interrogation room ready. Copy that, Hunter said, hauling one of the unconscious gunmen over his shoulder like a duffel bag. Victor walked ahead, phone pressed to his ear. Eliza, I need everything on the architect. Real name, last known location, known associates. I want every mission file from 2004 forward, classified or not. Boss, that's going to trip alarms, Eliza warned. Those files are buried under black site protocols. Then dig deeper, Victor snapped. I don't care if you wake up the entire Pentagon. I need answers in the next hour. He hung up and looked at me. You holding up? I nodded, though my ribs still ached from where Julian's guy had kicked me. I'm fine. Who is the architect? Victor's jaw tightened. His real name is Quentin Cross. Former Delta Force, then went private contractor with Blackwater during the Iraq invasion. Smart, ruthless, had a gift for logistics and wet work. We ran a joint op in Baghdad in 2004. Intelligence said we were hitting an arms dealer. Turns out it was a setup. Half his team got vaporized by an IED. And he blames you? I asked. He blames everyone, Victor said. He went off the grid after that. Word was he died in a black site raid in Yemen in 2014. Guess that was a lie. We entered the hangar. It wasn't fancy. Concrete floors, metal walls, a single folding table with a chair bolted to the ground. Hunter had already zip-tied Julian to it. The man looked pathetic, his expensive suit stained with blood and sweat. Victor walked up to him slowly, his footsteps echoing. He didn't sit. He just stood there staring down at the man who had tried to destroy his family. Julian, Victor said, his voice calm. You're going to tell me everything. Where Quentin is, how you contact him? Who else is involved? Julian shook his head frantically. I don't know. I never met him. Everything was encrypted messages and wire transfers, I swear. Victor nodded to Hunter. Hunter pulled out a tablet, tapped a few keys, and turned it around so Julian could see the screen. It was a live feed of our house, of my mother sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, a mug of tea shaking in her hands. Two of Victor's men stood guard by the windows. You see that? Victor said. That's my ex-wife. The woman you married. The woman you just tried to have killed? Julian's face went white. Victor, please! If you lie to me, Victor continued, his voice dropping to a whisper, I will make one phone call and she will never know what hit her. Not the Vipers. Not Quentin. Me. You wouldn't? Julian gasped. Victor leaned in close. Try me. The silence stretched. Julian cracked. Okay, he sobbed. There's a secure server, dark web. I uploaded files there, financial reports, property deeds, anything Quentin wanted on you. He paid me through crypto. I never saw his face. But there was one thing. What? I demanded, stepping forward. He said he was watching, Julian whispered. From a place where you used to run. Where your father taught you to fly. My blood ran cold. The old base, I said, looking at Victor. Fort Devlin. You trained there before Iraq. Victor's face hardened. That base was decommissioned 8 years ago. It's supposed to be empty. Eliza. Victor barked into his earpiece. Pull satellite imagery on Fort Devlin. Now. On it, she said, fingers clacking furiously. Boss, you're going to want to see this. Hunter pulled up the feed on the tablet. The image was grainy, shot from orbit, but clear enough. The old airstrip, the abandoned barracks, and in the center, a cluster of vehicles, tactical vans, armed personnel moving in formation. He's staging there, Victor said. He's been planning this for months. Planning what? I asked. Victor zoomed in on the image. In the center of the compound, a massive cargo container sat open. Inside, I could see the faint outline of heavy ordnance. Missiles. Explosives. He's not just after me, Victor said. He's going after everything. The company, the city. He's going to make a statement. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out. It was a text from an unknown number. Mason, you took my crew. I'll take your city. Midnight. Watch the sky. I showed it to Victor. His face went pale, then red with fury. He's going to hit downtown, Victor said. Multiple targets, maximum casualties. Can we stop him? I asked. Victor turned to Hunter. How many men do we have? 12 plus us, Hunter said. If we call in favors, maybe 20 by dawn. We don't have until dawn, Victor said. Midnight is 4 hours away. So what do we do? I asked. Call the cops? The FBI? And tell them what? Victor shot back. That a dead contractor is planning a terrorist attack based on a dark web rumor and a cryptic text? They'll file a report and send a patrol car. By the time they believe us, the bombs will be in the air. I felt the weight of it crushing down on me. We were out of time, out of options. Victor looked at me, and for the first time I saw something I never thought I'd see in his eyes: doubt. There's one option, he said slowly. But it's not legal, and it's not clean. What is it? I asked. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts. He stopped on a name I couldn't see. I call in a favor from someone I swore I'd never speak to again, he said. Someone who has access to assets the government won't admit exist. Who? I asked. Victor hesitated. Then he hit dial. The phone rang once. Then a gruff voice answered. Victor, the voice said. Didn't think I'd hear from you before hell froze over. I need air support, Victor said, his voice flat. Full package. Within 3 hours. The voice laughed. You know what that costs? Name it, Victor said. There was a pause. Then you owe me forever. Done, Victor said. The line went dead. Victor looked at me, his face unreadable. We just declared war, and we're going to finish it before the sun comes up. Hunter started packing gear, vests, weapons, comms. The hangar transformed into a staging ground. Where are we hitting first? I asked. The hospital, Victor said. We move Lila. If Quentin's smart, he'll go after her next. My stomach dropped. He wouldn't. He already did once, Victor said. He won't make the same mistake twice. We loaded into the SUVs. Julian was left zip-tied in the hangar with 2 guards. As we pulled out onto the road, I looked back at the airfield, the jet still humming on the tarmac. Somewhere out there, a dead man was coming for us, and we were driving straight into his crosshairs. But this time, we weren't running. We were bringing the storm. The hospital was chaos when we pulled up. Not the controlled medical chaos from before, but the kind where something was wrong and nobody was saying it out loud. Nurses were moving faster. Security guards were clustered near the elevator banks, talking into radios with tense faces. Victor didn't wait for an explanation. He marched straight to the ICU floor, me and Hunter flanking him. The 2 guards he'd posted outside Lila's room were still there, alert, hands near their sidearms. Report, Victor said sharply. Sir, 2 men tried to access this floor 20 minutes ago. What have the guards said? Fake EMT badges. We stopped them at the elevator. They ran when we challenged them. Description? Victor demanded. Military built. Tattoos. One had a scar across his jaw. Victor's face darkened. Quentin's crew. They're probing defenses. He pushed open Lila's door. She was still there, still unconscious. Machines still beeping in their steady rhythm. But now I saw how fragile the setup was. One compromised nurse, one distraction, one moment of weakness. We're moving her, Victor said, pulling out his phone. Eliza, I need a medical transport. Fully equipped ICU unit. Destination, the airfield. Boss, moving her could, leaving her here will kill her. Victor interrupted. Quentin knows where she is. He'll come back with more men and better planning. Get the transport now. Within 30 minutes, Dr. Harper was supervising the transfer with a team of nurses. She didn't ask questions. Maybe Victor had already paid her enough not to. Lila was loaded onto a specialized ambulance, monitors and 4 bags carefully secured. Mom arrived just as they were wheeling her out. She looked exhausted, terrified, her eyes red from crying. Victor, what's happening? She asked, grabbing his arm. Why are you moving her? Because the people who did this aren't done, Victor said, his voice softer than I'd heard it in years. And I'm not letting them finish the job. Where are you taking her? Mom demanded. Somewhere safe, he said. Somewhere I control every entrance, every camera, every person who walks through the door. She looked at me, searching my face for answers. I nodded. He's right, Mom. She's not safe here. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But she didn't argue. She just climbed into the ambulance with Lila, holding her small hand. I'm coming too, she said, her voice breaking. I'm not leaving her. Victor didn't fight her. He just nodded to the driver. Go fast. Hunter, you ride escort. Hunter jumped into one of the SUVs, and the convoy pulled out, lights flashing, cutting through traffic like a presidential motorcade. Victor and I stayed behind. We stood in the parking lot, watching the taillights disappear into the night. You think Quentin will follow them? I asked. No, Victor said. He knows that's a trap now. He'll adapt. He's probably already repositioned. So, what's the plan? I asked. Victor checked his watch. In 2 hours, the sun will be up. Quentin said midnight. That gives us a narrow window. For what? He looked up at the sky. It was still dark. Stars scattered like broken glass. To bring the hammer down before he does. We drove to the airfield. The place was transformed. What had been a quiet private strip an hour ago now looked like a forward operating base. Military vehicles lined the tarmac. Men in tactical gear moved with purpose, checking weapons, loading gear, coordinating over encrypted radios. Victor's jet sat in the center. But now it wasn't alone. 3 black helicopters sat nearby, rotors folded, waiting. Who are these people? I asked, staring at the small army. Private contractors, Victor said. The best money can buy. Some of them served with me. Others just like the paycheck. A figure approached from the shadows. He was older, gray-haired, with a scarred face and eyes that had seen too much. He wore a flight jacket with no insignia. Victor, the man said, extending a hand. Ryder, Victor replied, shaking it. Didn't think you'd answer? You said the magic words, Ryder said with a grim smile. Full package. Haven't heard that since Fallujah. What did you bring me? Victor asked. Ryder gestured to the helicopters. 3 Blackhawks. Fully armed. Miniguns. Hellfires if you need them. Pilots are Zone 160th SOAR. They can fly through a hurricane and land on a dime. And the jets? Victor asked. Ryder's smile widened. You didn't say jets. I'm saying it now, Victor said. Can you get them? Ryder pulled out a sat phone and made a call. He spoke in low tones. Numbers and codes I didn't understand. Then he hung up. 2 F-16s, Ryder said. They'll be overhead in 40 minutes. But Victor, this crosses a line. You're talking about unauthorized airspace violations, possibly firing on domestic targets. If this goes sideways. It won't, Victor said. Because we're not firing on anything unless Quentin fires first. And if he does... Victor's face hardened. Then we erase him from the map. Ryder nodded slowly. All right, your show. But when the alphabet agencies come... Asking questions, I was never here. Agreed, Victor said. I watched all this, my mind struggling to process it. My father had just mobilized a private air force. Not the National Guard, not the police. A private military operation that probably violated a dozen laws. This is insane, I muttered. Victor turned to me. It's necessary. Quentin isn't going to sit in some compound waiting for the FBI to knock. He's going to attack. And when he does, I want him looking at the sky and realizing he made a fatal mistake. What mistake? I asked. Victor pointed up. Thinking he could outfly the man who taught half the pilots in the Air Force how to fight. Eliza's voice crackled through Victor's earpiece. Boss, we've got movement at Fort Devlin. Thermal imaging shows at least 20 heat signatures. Vehicles moving toward the old airstrip. They're mobilizing, Victor said. Ryder. We're on the clock. I want those choppers in the air in 10 minutes. You got it, Ryder said, jogging toward the flight line. Victor turned to me. You're staying here. Like hell I am. I shot back. Lila's here. Mom's here. If Quentin breaks through, I'm the last line. Victor studied me for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a sidearm. A Glock 19. He handed it to me. Safety's here, he said, pointing. 15 rounds. You only use this if someone gets past us. Understood? I took the gun. It was heavier than I expected. Cold. Real. Understood, I said. Victor put a hand on my shoulder. I'm going to end this tonight. One way or another. Dad, I said, the words still feeling strange on my tongue. Don't do anything stupid. He almost smiled. Stupid is letting them think they won. He walked toward the lead helicopter. The rotors began to spin. Slowly at first, then faster. The wind building into a roar. Men climbed aboard, strapping in, checking comms. I stood on the tarmac, watching as the 3 Blackhawks lifted into the air, banking hard toward the east, toward Fort Devlin, toward the fight. And then I heard it. A distant thunder. I looked up and saw them. 2 sleek shapes cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. Afterburners glowing like falling stars. The F-16s. They screamed overhead, so low the ground shook beneath my feet. The sound was apocalyptic, primal, terrifying. Quentin wanted to send a message. Victor was sending an answer written in jet fuel and firepower. I looked toward the hangar where Lila lay, protected by armed guards and medical equipment. And I prayed that when the sun came up, this nightmare would finally be over. But deep down, I knew the hardest part was still coming. The ground didn't just shake. It convulsed. A second after the F-16s ripped through the sky, a deafening sonic boom slammed into the earth, shattering glass for miles and setting off every car alarm at Fort Devlin. It was a declaration of absolute dominance. I watched from the tarmac as the horizon lit up with flares. The F-16s weren't dropping bombs. Not yet. They were flying low, aggressively cutting off the airspace, turning the night into a terrifying display of air superiority. That's the signal, Victor said, his voice calm over the roaring wind. Move out. We scrambled into the armored SUVs. Ryder's team took the lead in a modified transport truck, the kind that looked like it could drive through a brick wall without scratching the paint. The drive to the fort was a blur of speed and adrenaline. We didn't take the main road. We cut through the perimeter fence, Ryder's truck tearing down the chain-link barrier like it was made of paper. Eliza, status. Victor barked. They're scrambling. Eliza reported. Thermal shows confusion. The jets scared the hell out of them. They think they're under military attack. Good, Victor said. Keep them confused. We breached the inner compound. The old barracks were dark, but the main hangar where the satellite had seen the heat signatures was lit up with floodlights. Gunfire erupted instantly. Ping! Ping! Bullets sparked off the armored glass of our SUV. I flinched, gripping the door handle. Stay low, Victor yelled. The convoy screeched to a halt, forming a defensive formation. Ryder's men poured out, moving with fluid, lethal precision. They returned fire, not spraying and praying, but with controlled, suppressed bursts. I fumbled for the door handle, adrenaline spiking. Mason, stay in the car, Victor ordered. No, I shouted back. I'm not watching this time. I kicked the door open and rolled out onto the tarmac, staying low behind the wheel well. The air smelled of cordite and jet fuel. The noise was overwhelming, shouting, gunfire, and the constant, terrifying roar of the jets circling overhead like vultures. Hunter, suppressing fire on the upper catwalk. Victor commanded, moving up beside me. He didn't look like a CEO anymore. He looked like the soldier he used to be. He held his rifle comfortably, scanning targets, issuing orders. I raised the Glock he'd given me, my hands shaking. I didn't want to shoot anyone. I just wanted this to end. Clear right. A mercenary shouted. We pushed forward, moving cover to cover toward the hangar doors. Ryder's team blew the locks with a breaching charge. Boom! The doors groaned and slid open. We stormed inside. The hangar was massive, filled with crates, vehicles, and something else. In the center of the room, hooked up to a generator, was a massive server bank. And next to it, a digital countdown clock. 45 minutes. What is that? I yelled over the gunfire. It's an uplink. Eliza shouted in my ear. He's not launching missiles, Victor. He's launching a cyber attack. Victor froze. He looked at the servers, then at the crates. They weren't full of explosives. They were cooling units. It's a dead man's switch. Victor realized. He's targeting the city's infrastructure, power grid, hospitals, air traffic control. If that clock hits 0, everything goes dark. Planes fall out of the sky. Patients on life support die. Lila. I whispered, the name a choked gasp. Even at the airfield, she needed power for her machines. Where is he? Victor roared, scanning the catwalks. Quentin. A slow clapping sound echoed from the shadows of the upper gantry. Bravo, Victor. A voice rasped. You always did make a grand entrance. A figure stepped into the light. Quentin Cross. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a ghost. Gaunt, wearing a simple black tactical vest, but his eyes, they were dead. You brought jets? Quentin called down, leaning on the railing. Impressive. But you can't bomb a virus. Shut it down, Quentin. Victor warned, raising his rifle. Can't. Quentin smiled. It's already in the system. 44 minutes until it executes. Unless. Unless what? I shouted, stepping out from cover. Quentin looked at me. Oh, the air. You look just like him. Arrogant. Unless I give you the kill code. Quentin finished. But the price is high. Name it. Victor said. Quentin's smile vanished. You. On your knees. Begging for forgiveness for the man you left in the dirt in Baghdad. Victor didn't hesitate. He didn't negotiate. Hunter. Victor whispered. Take the shot. Crack. A single shot rang out from the shadows where Hunter had flanked. Quentin jerked, his shoulder exploding in red. He staggered back, falling out of sight behind the machinery. Move. Victor screamed. Secure the terminal. We sprinted for the servers. The countdown was ticking, 43 minutes and 12 seconds. But as we reached the platform, I saw something that made my blood freeze. Quentin wasn't there. A trail of blood led to a side exit. And on the screen, a new message popped up. Protocol escalated. Target locked, Mercy General Hospital backup generators. He's not just shutting off the power. Eliza gasped. He's overloading the backup grid. He's going to blow the generators at the hospital. The explosion will take out the whole block. Lila's not there, I said, relief flooding me. We moved her. But hundreds of other people are, Victor said grimly. And I won't let them burn for my sins. Eliza, can you stop it? I asked. Not from here, she said. The signal is hard line. I need to be plugged into that server physically, but I'm 20 miles away. I looked at the server. I looked at the USB port. I'm here, I said. Talk me through it. Victor looked at me. Mason, if you mess this up. I won't, I said, jamming my phone into the port. Tell me what to do. The screen flashed red. Access denied. It's encrypted, Eliza said, panic in her voice. Biometric. It needs a fingerprint. I looked at the blood on the floor. Quentin's blood. I need his hand, I said, realizing what I had to do. Dad, we have to find him. I need his hand to unlock the system. Victor racked the slide on his rifle. Then, let's go get it. Let's go get it. Victor's voice echoed in the hangar. And for the first time, I felt the cold fury behind his words, matching my own. This wasn't about a company anymore. It was about saving lives from a man who saw them as collateral damage. I didn't hesitate. I ripped my phone from the server port and sprinted after him, leaving Eliza to guide us through the earpiece. The countdown clock burned into my vision, 38 minutes and 17 seconds. "Quentin's moving east, toward the secondary hangar," Hunter yelled, pointing down a dark service corridor. "He's wounded, but he's moving fast." We ran, our boots echoing on the concrete. The gunfire had stopped. Ryder's men were securing the main hangar, but Quentin's core team had melted into the shadows with him. "Eliza, are there schematics for this place?" Victor demanded. "Pulling them now," she said. "It's an old base, but I'm finding something. A network of maintenance tunnels under the hangars." "He's not trying to escape the base?" I asked, panting as we ran. "He's trying to get to the old comms tower," she replied. "Why?" I asked. "To broadcast," she replied. "If he gets a signal out, he can trigger the virus remotely. We have to cut him off before he reaches that tower." We burst out of the corridor into the open air between hangars. The pre-dawn sky was a deep, bruised purple. The F-16s were gone. Their job done. Now it was our fight on the ground. "There!" Hunter pointed. 100 yards away, a figure limped toward a small, squat building with a tall radio antenna. "Quentin. We can't shoot him," I yelled. "We need him alive! We need his hand." "Then we corner him," Victor said. "Hunter, you take the south entrance. Mason, with me. We go in the front." We split up, running low. The comms tower building was old, rusted, windows shattered. As we approached, I saw 2 of Quentin's men setting up a defensive position by the door. They opened fire. We dived behind a stack of old oil drums. Bullets ricocheting with loud, angry pings. "They've got us pinned!" I shouted. Victor didn't answer. He was watching the tower. "He's not just broadcasting," he said. "He's downloading. Look." High on the antenna, a satellite dish was slowly turning, locking onto a target in the sky. "He's taking control of something," Victor realized. "Eliza, what satellites are overhead?" "One of yours," she said, her voice tight. "A communications satellite. If he gets control, he can use its signal to bypass any ground-based jammers. He could trigger the attack from anywhere in the world." "He's not taking my satellite," Victor growled. He looked at me. "When I give the signal, you run for that door. Don't stop. Don't look back. Just get to the server room and get ready." "What signal?" "You'll know it when you see it," he said. He pulled out his sat phone and made a one-word call. "Skyfall." For a second, nothing happened. Then the ground shook. It wasn't a sonic boom this time. It was a low, guttural roar that grew louder and louder. From over the horizon, a single jet screamed toward us. It wasn't one of the F-16s. It was bigger. Meaner. It was my father's private jet. The one that was supposed to be sitting on the tarmac, waiting to fly to safety. "You're using your own plane," I stammered. "It's just a machine," he said, eyes fixed on the tower. "Family is not." The jet swooped low, engine screaming. Quentin's men at the door looked up, stunned. They raised their rifles, but it was useless. The jet didn't fire missiles. It didn't drop bombs. It flew straight at the radio antenna. There was a horrific crunch of metal on metal. The antenna buckled, twisted, and then tore away from the building in a shower of sparks. The jet's wing was mangled, smoke pouring from the engine, but the pilot managed to pull up, banking hard and turning back toward the airfield. In that moment of chaos, Victor grabbed my arm. "Go! Now!" We sprinted for the door. Quentin's men were still staring at the sky, mouths open in disbelief. We were on them before they could react. Victor took one. I tackled the other. We burst inside. The server room was right there, a small, hot room filled with humming machines. And in the center, Quentin, clutching his bleeding shoulder, frantically typing at a terminal. He looked up as we entered, his face a mask of fury. "You destroyed my signal!" he roared. "It's over, Quentin," Victor said, his rifle aimed steady. Quentin laughed. A dry, rattling sound. "Over? It's never over!" He slammed a big red button on the console. The screen flashed. "Manual override! Countdown accelerated! 10 minutes! I can't stop it anymore!" Quentin sneered. "But I can sure as hell watch it happen!" He lunged, not at us, but at a fire axe on the wall. He swung it wildly, smashing it into the servers. Sparks flew. Alarms blared. "If I can have my revenge," he screamed. "No one gets to win." Hunter came in from the back, tackling him. They wrestled on the floor. "The fingerprint!" I yelled, running to the main terminal. The biometric scanner was still glowing. 5 minutes. Victor grabbed Quentin's uninjured hand, dragging him toward the console. "I'll die before I help you!" Quentin snarled, fighting back. "I know," Victor said grimly. He twisted Quentin's arm, forcing his hand down toward the scanner. Quentin roared, resisting. 1 minute. There was no time. I looked at Victor. He looked at me. The same thought passed between us. It didn't have to be him. It just had to be his hand. Victor nodded once. Hunter understood. He drew his combat knife. "Hold him," Hunter said. There was a sickening slice, a scream that was cut short, and then a heavy thud. Victor grabbed the severed hand. He pressed a thumb to the scanner. Beep. Access granted. Cancellation code required. "Eliza! Now!" I yelled. "Sending!" she screamed. Lines of code flew across the screen. The countdown clock froze at 3 seconds. Then it vanished. Systems shut down complete. The room went silent, save for the hum of the cooling fans. I sank to my knees, gasping for air. We had done it. I looked at Quentin's body on the floor. Then at the hand, still lying on the console. Then at my father, who stood there covered in another man's blood, looking older and more tired than I had ever seen him. "Is it over?" I whispered. "Yes," Victor said, his voice flat. "It's over." But as he said it, a lone monitor, one that hadn't been smashed, flickered to life. It wasn't code. It was a video feed. A hospital room. Lila's hospital room. And standing over her bed, a woman in a nurse's uniform looked up at the camera and smiled. It was Dr. Harper. "You stopped the big attack, Victor," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "But you forgot about the inside man. Or, in this case, the inside woman." She held up a syringe filled with a clear liquid. "This is for Baghdad," she whispered and moved the needle toward Lila's arm. My heart stopped. The world narrowed to the flickering image on the monitor. Dr. Harper, the trusted surgeon, holding a syringe over my sister's arm, her face twisted into a mask of cold hatred. "No!" I whispered, a breath of pure ice. Victor stared at the screen, his face a canvas of shock, rage, and dawning horror. He had planned for every contingency, every tactical assault, every digital ghost. But he never saw the enemy wearing scrubs. "Harper was one of his," Victor said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "Quentin's girlfriend. A combat medic on the mission in Baghdad. I never made the connection. Dad, we have to stop her!" I yelled, scrambling to my feet. "How long does it take for that stuff to work?" "Depends what it is," he said, already running. "But we're not waiting to find out." We burst out of the comms tower and sprinted for the last remaining helicopter. Ryder was already in the pilot's seat, shouting into his headset. "What's the play, Victor?" Ryder yelled over the spinning rotors. "Get us to the airfield. Now!" Victor roared, climbing in. "And get me Eliza!" The chopper lifted, the ground falling away as we banked hard, racing against time itself. "Eliza, talk to me!" Victor commanded. "Harper has Lila. She's going to inject her. I see her." Eliza's voice crackled, filled with panic. "She's locked the room from the inside. The guards are trying to breach the door, but it's reinforced. Is there any other way in?" I asked, my mind racing. "A window? The hangar is a sealed medical unit. One way in, one way out," Eliza said. "To keep it sterile." "Sterile?" I choked out, a bitter laugh escaping me. On the small monitor in the chopper, we watched the live feed. My mother was pounding on the door, her screams muffled. Dr. Harper ignored her, her focus entirely on Lila. "It's a shame, really," Harper said to my unconscious sister. "He looked just like him. That same arrogance. He took everything from me that day in Baghdad, my love, my future. It's only fair I take his." She uncapped the needle. "No!" I slammed my fist against the side of the helicopter. "There has to be something we can do." "There is," Victor said. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a terrifying calm. Eliza, you have control of the hangar's internal systems, right? Everything except the door lock. Yes, she confirmed. The medical gas lines, Victor said. Can you flood the room? My stomach dropped. Flood it with what? You'll kill them both. Not oxygen, Victor said. Anesthetic. Can you pump pure sevoflurane through the ventilation system? There was a pause. I can't, Eliza said slowly. It's a high-pressure line. It would knock her out in seconds. But Lila? The dosage, her life support can handle it, Victor said. She's already intubated. Her system is closed. Harper's isn't. Do it. Now! On the monitor, we saw a vent in the ceiling. A faint, colorless gas poured into the room. Dr. Harper looked up, sniffing the air, confused. She took a step, then faltered. Her eyes widened in realization. She took another shaky step toward the door, but her knees buckled. The syringe clattered to the floor. She collapsed in a heap, unconscious. The chopper landed hard on the tarmac. Victor and I were out before the skids even settled, sprinting for the hangar. The guards had finally breached the door. We burst in to see my mother on her knees beside Lila's bed, sobbing with relief. Medical personnel rushed in, checking Lila's vitals, while Ryder's men zip-tied the unconscious Dr. Harper. I ran to Lila's side. Her chest rose and fell in the same steady rhythm. She was safe. It was over. 1 month later. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. I stood on the balcony of the hospital's recovery wing, watching a commercial jet take off in the distance. She's awake, a voice said behind me. I turned. Victor stood there, looking more like a father and less like a general. He had a small smile on his face. I walked back into the room. Lila was sitting up in bed, drawing in a sketchbook. She looked pale, but her eyes were bright. She smiled when she saw me. Hey, sleepyhead, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I had a weird dream, she said. There were loud noises and a mean lady. But you were there, and so was Dad. I looked at Victor. He looked at me. A new, fragile understanding passed between us. The legal fallout had been messy. Julian Sterling and his cronies were facing federal charges. Preston Hale was disgraced. But the architect, the jets, the private army? That had all been quietly buried under layers of national security and favors owed. Ryder and his men had vanished back into the shadows. My mother and Victor were speaking again, not like before, but like two veterans who had survived the same war. She had left Julian, of course. She was healing, just like Lila, just like me. She's a fighter, Victor said, putting a hand on my shoulder. Just like her brother. We stood there for a long moment, watching her draw. She was sketching 3 figures holding hands under a sky filled not with war jets, but with a bright, shining sun. Justice hadn't come from a bullet. It had come from a family that refused to break. The quiet revenge was this: we were still standing. We were whole. Music swelled slightly. It's strange how life can throw you into something so dark, only for you to find light in the most unexpected places, or from the most unexpected people. This whole experience, it changed me, and it changed my relationship with my father in ways I never thought possible. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to make an impossible choice, or call on someone you swore you'd never trust again, all for the sake of family? What would you have done in my shoes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to hear what you think.